And the idea today, I think, is really to, one, lift up these, I guess you're freshman leaders, right? Latina freshman leaders at the county and state level. Two, to really understand their journey and what it took to get there. And three, what their issues are, meaning what platforms they ran on, what are they looking forward to, their priorities, etc. Our first guest, as I said, is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez, and she is currently, I'm so excited to say this, the county councilwoman for Montgomery County District 6. I live in Montgomery County, so I'm very excited. But there's also, I'm going to share it, Natalie, I have to. Natalie, at one point, when she was, I believe, still in high school, was my intern way back in the day. So it's really a beautiful thing to see this arc of growth and leadership in a young woman that we always knew was going to be this amazing, like, elected leader. She was always going to run for office. She serves District 6, which includes Aspen Hill, and correct me, Natalie, if I'm wrong, Strathmore, Forest Glen, Glenmont, Kemp Mill, Kensington, I believe, parts of Bethesda, and Rockville and Wheaton. So what's really interesting is that overall, when you take all of that agglomeration of areas, it's about 11% Latino. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you look at pockets like Aspen Hill, it's more than 30% Hispanic. And I think that is something that our elected leaders who are, we love that they are representing us, but they're representing all of us, right? They're representing their county district. So she brings a lot of deep local government experience to the table. I think she's really, I've watched her over the years, and she's really focused on economic opportunity for her region. And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, apart from all the wonderful progressive things you have done on immigration and environmental justice and organizing, community building, and all those things, you're also really been interested in transportation. Which I love, because when you look at social determinants of health, which we talk about often, this is a key area for our community to have access to the things that they need. So welcome, Natalie. Thank you for being with us. Let's open it up to you. Let's start with the first question. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your journey.
Muy buenos días. Thank you so much for having me here today and for the invitation. My journey, I am the only immigrant on the county council in Montgomery County. We are 11 members now. And I think that says a lot, especially in Montgomery County when there's so many immigrants. It's like the top county with the largest amount of immigrants. I think it's Montgomery County, Prince George's County, the Baltimore area too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
And then the city of Annapolis, believe it or not, almost 24% Latino.
Yes, exactly. I came to the States when I was 15 years old with my mom. I was born in Venezuela, and I came like many immigrants looking for better opportunities. I did not speak English. We were undocumented, and like many other immigrants, we found Langley Park, which is like the Mecca of the Latino community. When they come to Maryland, that was our home. So I went to Northwestern High School, which is on the side of Prince George's County, but my local library was Long Branch Library, which is on the side of Montgomery County. I live 2 blocks away from the border with Montgomery County. Because if you live in the Langley Park,
so you're in the borderlands.
Yes. So when you live in the Langley Park, Long Branch area, you don't see lines for counties. It's all the same, neighborhood. So I was although I was an ESOL student, I was very good at math. So my math score with the SAT was like almost perfect.
Oh my God.
And that got me to go to Goucher College in Baltimore for free. They gave me a free ride because of my scores. My English was not very good looking still, yet they gave me a tutor, so I couldn't fail my biology classes. I wanted to be a doctor first. So I do Gouchers in my heart, and every time I have an opportunity to give them love, I give them love. I ended up in their board of trustees after graduating from college. And so that was my journey in terms of education. And I was very involved with the immigrants' rights effort, being undocumented and all. I worked for CASA, the Latino nonprofit. But before I even got to CASA to work for them, I worked for LULAC, where Gabi was a director there. You know, a small world. And so so after I graduated from college, I became CASA's lobbyist on the Maryland Dream Act. So we, you know, it took us like over 10 years to pass it, but we did. And it was a great experience because CASA is centrally located. I got to work in Annapolis, but also in Capitol Hill. So I was working on the Maryland Dream Act. And at the same time, I was working on the Dream Act, which was the federal bill, which hasn't passed.
Yeah, we're still
we had
working on that one 20
yeah,
years later.
Yeah, you know. And you laugh, but it's not funny, but it's
I know,
tragic.
it's awful.
It's tragic. So anyway, then after that, I went to work for SEIU, Service Employees International Union, with Jaime Contreras. And then after I did my work with labor and before that immigration, I said, you know what, let me open my own company. So I started my own firm on communications. And around the same time, so all my contracts were at the national level, working on the Basta Dops, which is like the Lou Dops campaign, and a
That's
whole
right.
bunch
I
of
forgot
other.
about that.
Yeah, I managed the PR for the foreign documented students who walked from Florida to Washington, D.C., the Trail of Dreams, and that led to DACA. So I did all the PR, and I was being very successful until one day I was told that, number one, I was being deported because I couldn't renew my green card. It was a long story. Senator Chris Van Hollen jumped on my case and helped me big time to stay. And I became a citizen. I'm not gonna get into the details because it's just too long. It would take forever. And then after I became a citizen, former state delegate Ana Sol Gutierrez, she thought that she was gonna resign for her office as a state delegate. She was the only Latina back then as a delegate, and I was living in her district. So I filed to run for office, but then she changed her mind. And I said, well, you know what? I'm still gonna run because I already filed, but I know I'm gonna lose. So I run a very clean campaign without attacking anybody, just letting people know who I was and learning about the issues in my community. I lost. This is 2014. I lost, but I got to cast my first vote as an American citizen and vote for myself. So to me, that was a win. And so 4 months after that, there was an opening on the Montgomery County Planning Board, which is part of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. Is basically the agency that regulates real estate development, maintains the parks system, and works on transportation infrastructure. So there was an opening there, and a council member named George Levanthal, former council member in Montgomery County, and Nancy Navarro, who used to be a council member in Montgomery County, said, Natalie, you run such a cool race. You know, people really, you know, respect you. There has never been a Latina or Latino on the commission. There has never been a millennial on the commission either. You should apply. So I applied. Long story short, I got the job. I became a planning board member, which is a really big deal. One of the most powerful agencies in the state because it's a bi-county commission. Think about all the development projects in your neighborhoods. They go through that commission to get approval. I'm talking about millions and millions of dollars. So after being on the planning board for 7 years and I became the vice chair of the planning board, I decided to resign and run for county council. Okay, since this new opening came up, I ran against 8 people in my primary, and I won by over 56% of the vote.
Wow.
Which is huge. No newcomer, at least in Montgomery County, had that margin. I was one of the very first people that the Washington Post called as, you know, the winner for the primary. And then my general election in November, I won by over 90% of the vote. And this is my district is, as Gabby was saying, extremely diverse. It's from Forest Glen to Aspen Hill. It includes 3 metro stations, which means we got money here too. But also, it's the district with the largest number of Latinos in Montgomery County is mine. So winning with such a huge margin, it's a pretty big deal.
It is.
Long story short, like, I'm gonna end before I open up for questions because I want to make sure that I answer all your questions. Somebody's on the is on
Please
mute.
mute yourselves.
The when I joined the county council, when you're on the county council in Montgomery County, at least you get to be on 2 different committees. Okay. I came in saying I want to be on the land use, transportation, and economic development committee because that's my background, coming from the planning, from the planning board and being a businesswoman. And long story short, I ended up being on the committee that deals with land use, housing, and parks as one committee. There are 3 county council members in that committee, and one of them, that's the most powerful one because it deals with land use. And the second committee is economic development, and I ended up being the chair of that committee. So not only I knew, but I'm like this is the first time we have an economic development committee in Montgomery County, and I'm the chair. And I think that speaks a lot, not just about me, but about all that work we have done together as a community. Because it's the committee that has the most responsibility dealing with economic development corporation for the county, overviewing the DPS, which is Department of Permitting Services, everything that deals with alcohol and beverages. Maybe is also under my committee. Tourism, agritourism, under my committee as well. It's a huge responsibility, but I embracing it, and I'm hoping to do a good job to make you all proud. The last thing I would say is that yesterday I had my first town hall meeting with my community. I was on transportation infrastructure. I have over 120 people join us in person, which is not a single Zoom. A significant number, at least 40 of those 120, at least 40 were all Latinos whose main language was not English and needed translation. Having my community there among other folks from the different ethnicities talking about transportation I think it's the first time it has happened in Montgomery County, because usually when you see the Latino community joining on a particular issue, it's usually on either healthcare
or immigration.
Or immigration. Those 3, never on transportation. Transportation is our issue. Who's riding the buses? Our community. Who's walking to the bus stops to get on the bus? Our community. It's not an opinion, it's based on data. It's the Black and brown community who are using the public system the most. We're the ones most affected. In my district, we have Georgia Avenue, which is owned by the state, and University Boulevard, which is owned by the state as well. Most of the killings, people getting killed by crossing the street due to crashes, are Latinos crossing the street. That's the demographic. So this is the first time that there's something that like this type of town hall happened. I had SHA, the Department of Highway Safety was there. We have DOT, Department of Transportation was there. I had Metro showed up, WMATA was there, all having presentations about what they're doing, what the plans are, the budget, and us as a community demanding to have fixes right away. I was able to place in the Montgomery County Transportation Priority Letter that went to Westmore just last week. A highlight for the first time ever that Georgia Avenue is a street that is killing our community and needs immediate answers by redesigning the road so people can walk, bike, roll, and drive safely, because we live here. We just don't just move around. We live here. For the first time that
There's no sidewalks in huge parts of it.
Exactly. So that happened. And the last thing, honestly, the last thing I'm going to say is that I've been talking to Governor Westmore, and again, he came to Montgomery County on Friday on a huge project that we're doing with life sciences in North Bethesda, which is part of my district as well. He promised me that he will be doing a safety walk on Georgia Avenue, safety meaning pedestrian cyclist walk with me, my community, this year. So stay tuned, because I need masses. I need a crowd. I know I got 120 people yesterday, with a lot of hustle, like engaging. I went door knocking too. To get people out there. Yeah,
so you're still door knocking.
Oh, I'm still door knocking so people can show up and not be like, not just complain. No, you cannot just complain. You got to show up. And And so when that day comes, I'm shooting for May after the legislature is done in Annapolis and before the heavy rain comes, because we're gonna be walking outside. But I'll keep you posted.
That might be wise though. Take them while it's raining so that they understand that those little houses they put over the bus stops matter.
Yeah, the bus shelters. I would say, yeah, you never know with this crazy weather, but I was shooting for late April, beginning of May. I'm hoping to secure the date by next week and to put it on his calendar, but it's gonna happen. And the whole point is for him to see how dangerous it is and to help us get the funding that we need to redesign Georgia Avenue, University Boulevard. People have this idea that Montgomery County is rich. Yes, we're rich, but we also have deep packets of poverty, especially in my neighborhood, in my district, and they're Latinos.
Right.
So anyway, I ended with that. I'm sorry I went for too long. Because I know
no, that's why you're here. We want to hear these things because that's the kind of change that needs to happen. But also you're giving us an understanding of how it all functions together. And actually, let me please put questions. Let me just put this in. Please put your questions in the chat or raise your hand. We have a statement in the from Sonia Demire, who I know you know very well, that says the Baltimore Transit Equity Coalition is working on a regional transportation authority to help us all, and they're seeking signatures. So that's just to raise some awareness there. What do you think about these regional approaches to the work that you're trying to accomplish? Because you're in a unique situation. You just said it. You're in a fairly wealthy county with really deep pockets of vulnerable communities, let's call them that, who really could use additional attention, which is what you're bringing to the table. How do you feel about a regional approach to all of this? Does it help you?
It helps me big time, and we must. As State of Economic Development in Montgomery County, I have actually highlighted that Montgomery County will do better if Prince George's is doing great, if Baltimore City is doing awesome. I believe that FBI, for example, headquarters should be going to Prince George's County because that will help people, and you could end up having people who not just work at the FBI in Prince George's County, but also live in Montgomery County. We're helping each other that way. Having transit, rapid transit, having the MARC rail. Let me give you an example with a MARC rail. Having another third rail for MARC that takes people all the way up county, Germantown, Gettysburg, all the way to Frederick, and also linking that all the way to Baltimore City, having that third rail so there are more trains and more efficiency. That helps the environment too, because you have people driving cars less and taking more transit. So if you think regionally that how can we connect our counties with transit and with big economic development projects like having the FBI headquarters in Prince George's County, we're fighting to have ARPA-H, which is this facility of scientists connected with the NIH. We're fighting to have it here in Montgomery County, in North Bethesda, and making sure North Bethesda is transformed as like a Silicon Valley on the life sciences. That's key, not just for Montgomery County, that's key for the region, because you could easily have people, especially with a purple line that is being built that connects Prince George's with Montgomery County. Then I just talked about the MARC rail connecting from Frederick all the way to Baltimore. You can have people living in any of those counties in the city of Baltimore and working at here in Montgomery County. That's just one example. If we don't think regionally, also in DC, in Virginia, they are all rivals in many ways. But when we talk about housing and the housing crisis, I think about what's happening in DC, in Arlington, in Fairfax, Montgomery County, and in Prince George's County, in that particular area. That market is very different from Baltimore City's or Baltimore County's market in terms of land. Our land is really expensive. So I'm actually introducing a bill on Monday. It's my first bill. It's my very first.
No wonder you're tired.
Yeah, I am very tired. I went to bed at 1 a.m. yesterday, and we finished our town hall, got home at 10, and I have a bunch of stuff to do for this bill. And I'm driving to Poolsville after this for an event that deals with agro-tourism as an economic development chair. So anyway, I'm busy, but I will tell you this: housing, we have a housing crisis, and there's no simple solution, and we gotta use many tools to deal with it. Okay, you are not gonna make everybody happy. I'm gonna put it out there. I run my race, and I was quoted I had an interview with Kojo Nambi, the WAMU radio show. I was the only person who won the primary who he interviewed. And we talked about housing, and I have always said, I'm going to help the most vulnerable communities in my district in Montgomery County, because that's my community. Okay. So I'm building on that. I'm proposing, this is being recorded, right? Okay. I'm not going to give you too many details, but you're going to see the press release on Monday.
Awesome.
I will say,
you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, yes, it has to deal with anti-rent gouging, making sure that rents don't go after a specific number, but also understanding. I come from the Parking Planning Commission, and I'm pro-growth. I need more housing in my district. I need more redevelopment in my district. If we don't bring more housing, build more housing near transit, we are screwed, okay? Yeah. We are. That's the reality. So I had to do this in a way that I'm controlling prices for tenants, but in a way that I won't scare redevelopment that I need to happen in Glenmont, in Wheaton, and in Forest Glen. And I named those 3 locations because those are 3 metro stations located in my district where we have space to build for smart growth, okay? But I also need to be deeply affordable housing. So I have a strategy that I have a package that I'm introducing on Monday dealing with anti-gouging, like not increasing rent up to a certain point, and also increasing money for rental assistance by the millions that we need, and going exactly to the people who needs it the most. And also have a third component. Just don't put this on, this is live and you're recording this somewhere, right? Is that what's happening? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, never mind. But that one I won't tell you, but it's great. And I'm moving with I'm a lobbyist, as you know, by trade. And Gabi, I also learned from you being a lobbyist and counting votes. So I'm pushing it to have that happy medium where I can get those folks who are no on rent control, but yes on growth. But yes, how can we balance that out and build something that we can actually be proud of, efficient, and really help a community? So I stay tuned. I'm gonna get it out of I'm gonna make some developers really, really mad, and some other groups extremely upset because it's not too much, it's not lefty enough. But my job as an elected official is to legislate and to do something that will push us forward. My job is not to have headlines and to, that's just not me. I'm very practical. I don't like to waste time. I don't like games, especially political games. I'm going to go to what's realistic and move us forward. So stay tuned. That's what I'm going to say. And I'll make sure that you get the press release, Gabi. So
please do. And we'll share it with our team here, because that's why they're all here, to learn these things. So there's one question that I feel is kind of burning. Okay. And it might be an interesting way to wrap this up. There's a lot of questions here. There's a lot of comments too about we have folks from Poolesville, Carlos Orbe, who's actually our public affairs specialist.
On my way there, Carlos.
And then we have some comments about rent cap stabilization and et cetera. But the burning question comes from Veronica. And I think it's when, as Latinas, we often confront, and it's being the only one in the room. And if you have any recommendations on how we can increase the number of our public servants and elected officials, you shared your journey at the beginning, and it's pretty intense, what you've done. And you started, there's a lot of serendipity involved, but how do you manage?
Oh man, I'm very detail oriented, and I have 2 children. I didn't mention that. And my kids are ages 8 and 9. My husband is my best friend. There's no way I could do this without him. I would say you gotta be true to yourself always and understand that you're not gonna please everybody. Have thick
Right.
skin. You're not, it's impossible. Like this housing bill that I just told you is gonna be another great example. You're not gonna please everyone, and that's okay. As long as you understand who you are and you're moving forward and understand that you are replaceable. I can easily be replaced by somebody else like this. Easy. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do today to make sure that I lift up my community as much as I can for whoever replaces me at some point can take over and keep going forward. That's my mentality. And you got to have thick skin. I'm the only woman, but I'm very opinionated. And I have a beautiful accent, and I see it as my power. I don't let that make me shy or something or anything like that. I mean, being chosen as chair of economic development, I think it says a lot. And it speaks on the fact that of you gotta have good character and have good judgment and do things with integrity. That's the other thing that I would say. And I also am trying to work with young people. I did a lot of work with young folks in my campaign, and I'm gonna start looking for fellows and interns in my office. And I'm not afraid to say that I want Latinas to be the ones, like I prioritize them. I have Katia, who I stole from Senator Chris Van
I
Hollen's.
know.
She's working with me, Latina, young Latina from Glenmont, my district. And Jose, Latinos, working also in my district. He lives in the Villesman Corridor area in my district. So I have 2 Latinos. I have 4 people working in my office. So of the 4 people, 2 are Latinos, 2 are white. And but if you count me, I'm Latina, so we're the majority in my office. And 4 of the 5, we all live in my district. To me, that was very important. And I do want to have fellows and interns that are Latinos to inspire them. And I do speak a lot in different high schools in my district, where mostly Latino kids. So I think that's a responsibility.
I agree. We have to mentor our next generation. It's for me, it's, I've always been this way, but I feel very strongly that the future is Latina. Whoops, that was biased. But I think there's a lot of possibility for helping our young folks out. And someday I might retire, right? And I want to see a huge long line of young Latinos and Latinas behind me who can take on the roles. And really, a lot of people are laughing when I said that. I don't know why.
You're not retiring anytime soon.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I see my friend Denny Taveras, the state delegate in Prince George's County, who's here, and I love that. Lenny, I gotta go. I gotta drive to Poolsville, but I love seeing you. And I love having you in this group, and I send you guys love and positive energy. Have a beautiful day. I gotta go. Gaby, thank you for inviting me.
No, un abrazo.
All right, nos vamos. Ciao.
Bye. Welcome, Denny. It's so great to have you here. So allow me to briefly introduce Delegate Taveras. I'm so happy to be able to say that, because previously she was a county councilwoman and she stepped up, and now she's a state delegate, and she represents District 47B in Prince George's County, next door to Montgomery, where it's the other very large Latino population in our state that Natalie mentioned earlier. Okay, so Denny, I'm going to try, let's see, you cover what? Hyattsville, Langley Park, Adelphi, and Chilham. I believe these are all parts of your district.
Chilham used to be part of my district, but now I do Carroll Highlands, Lewisdale, Langley Park, and Adelphi.
Okay, so a very diverse community that has both a lot of wealth, but also a number of socioeconomic challenges that when you were, one of the things I love about your platform when you were running for office is you really embrace this idea of being a catalyst for change, right? And I just think that that's like yes, let's do this. And you ran on, if I'm not mistaken, you do a lot around infrastructure development. Like when you were in the county council, you got 9 schools started in your district, and then libraries, 2 libraries, I think. So you've really been devoted to this concept of infrastructure investment in our youth, quality housing. And the other piece that I love is you really have a strong environmental heart, which is safer and cleaner communities, right? So it's all like amazing. So now that you've basically, fixed parts of Prince George's County, what do you plan to do for the state legislature, right? This is a different way of approaching decision making. So maybe let's start with a similar question to what I asked Natalie. Tell us about yourself and your journey from county councilwoman to delegate, de veras, and share with us some of your personal story.
Sure. I'm originally from New York City, from New York. I grew up in New York around the 80s when it was like the height of the crack epidemic and the AIDS epidemic. So that really marked me. I'm an orphan. I was an orphan by the time I was 9. And so, having grown up and being forced to work by the time I was 9 in sweatshops and those kinds of things in New York City when textiles were still in the United States really marked me as an individual to see, hey, do you want to go down this career of, menial work or get educated? So I opted for education. And so from there, I got myself 3 masters, 2 in chemistry, worked for the EPA. I went to the last school I went to was Princeton for public affairs and urban regional planning. And there, I feel that, either you're part of the problem or part of the solution. So I went in and served my country to respond to Hurricane Katrina on the front lines. But I saw that I really didn't see a tangible change. I mean, I got things started and helped fund initial change, but I didn't see the end result. So when coming back home, coming back from a catastrophic disaster is like coming back home for more. You got to regroup. So I saw that my condominium was going into bankruptcy because there was the bubble, the housing bubble was bursting at that time.
Right.
And I took it over, converted it to a multi-million-dollar corporation. I still run it on the side for free. And we've been able to do millions of dollars of repairs, all paid. We don't owe anybody a dime. And I think that the thing with that is that it's still accessible for working families. And that's something I'm very proud of. At that time, Senator Victor Ramirez said to me, hey, if you did that for this community, come and work for me. I did. I ran his district. And this position for county council opened up. I ran, won by 6 votes on my first election. And the rest, I think, is history from what you picked up on the rest. I've been able to bring over $10 billion, 9 schools, 2 libraries, and funded it all, and left it all funded before coming here.
So what's next?
In terms of what I've been able to do, is not much. It's not that much different. Don't be surprised. I mean, right now we are looking at. I'm looking at passing 2 transit-oriented development bills that are focused on business improvement districts. I created the first business improvement district in the Langley Park area, in that what I call the Northern Gateway, all the way from Adelphi to the DC borderline, which is the Greater Chilham area. And being able to do that for that neighborhood is going to be transformational. And so
what does that involve exactly?
Well, I have to create the business improvement district. To me, is a visionary. I want to create this as a national model for non-displacement neo light rails. Light rails and transit and transit stations have not been very forgiving of communities of color, typically when they're constructed. And so what I want to do is a three-prong approach on this bid. First, we want to have the typical quality of life issues, which is the lawn care, like leaf blowing, litter pickup, bulk trash pickup, general maintenance, so to speak. And we want to do it through a workforce development model. So that's one of the big issues, because in Langley Park, that's a critical thing. We want to also do like tree planting, just things that will make and beautify the community and maintain it.
And prevents heat islands, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's part of then we want to create a green bank that will also feed into that, and will also leapfrog a lot of these environmental benefits and sustainability benefits to our communities and low-income communities of color, because right now we're really lacking. You don't see, you might see a electric vehicle charging station in some of the wealthier neighborhoods, but you don't really see it in Langley Park. And so how do we make it possible to bring these kinds of technologies into this neighborhood? One of the things that I do see now, because of the supports that we have been able to bring, is that we've had a larger amount of, let's say, solar panels being installed. You could see that along Riggs Road. And so we want to be able to continue to grow that. So looking at geothermal, hydrogen fuel cells in single family homes, etc. And those are cost savings while they may be an initial sunk cost, those are cost savings for communities in the long run. And then we want to do another part, which is a community development and property management piece. For me, that's kind of like, when I look at that, I think of that as a for us, by us. We never get to own the land. We never get, as Latinos, because I'm the only majority Latino district in the States. So how possible could it be when we start to own the land and run the land in our community? So that's kind of like the community development piece, having it be owned by us, for us kind of situation. And then do the property management. Like if we get to do rentals, typically when you do a rental analysis, you just ask, oh, can you afford to pay the rent? But nobody looks at you holistically. Like, what age are your kids? How are they doing in school? Are you literate? Are you literate in English? Are you literate in Spanish? And what are your long-term goals? So we could do these wraparounds around these families and be able to elevate them so that eventually they can transition out of rental and into more long-term permanent housing that they can own and build their own intergenerational wealth for a longer period. So it's a more
it's soup to nuts
approach.
It's really a soup to nuts approach, where you're looking, as you said, holistically at every single component and how they intersect. It's a very complex approach, but I think it's one that is very healthy for our communities. You mentioned housing and home ownership. Have you been thinking about how we can do better? So I live in Montgomery County, but I'm maybe 5 minutes away from Prince George's, almost on the border. And I'm just wondering, have you thought about home expansion or housing expansion? Because there seems to be a dearth of affordable housing in the area, which puts a lot of pressures on the rental market.
So right now we are looking at passing, allowing the county to enact powers to do pilots for the explicit purpose of low-income housing and affordable housing for the long term. Right now, the bills that I have are specific to commercial properties, to do eminent domain and a right of first refusal program for properties that are along the Purple Line corridor. And we're looking at, and in terms of the bid, we're looking to enact bids but we're moving the needle from 80% approval in order to buy into 51%. And so those are the major, that's the major legislation around housing that I've been able to see that are specific to Prince George's.
So let's talk a little bit about your district. You've mentioned a few things about it, especially its diversity and its mixture of needs. What do you think is really unique about your district and some of the opportunities and challenges that it's facing? Because you started talking, well, you didn't just start, you've developed this concept that's pretty innovative for how to make the change. But do you have any like unexpected challenges you didn't foresee before starting with the work? I mean, I realize you're a newbie, but even though you're not a newbie, you've been in politics forever. I'm just like, what's really sort of surprised you?
Well, I mean, what surprised me is that coming from New York, I come from a massive group of Latinos that are very politically engaged. I mean, Veronica could be the first to tell you, Dominicans breathe politics, in a very tangible way. Dominicans have been here basically for 60 years. And in that small space of time in the history of this country, we have literally occupied every single level of the political sphere, from the county boards to the White House and Congress. So we, not just politically, but also in terms of appointments, and for me to come here, it was a change because I represent a predominantly Central American community that's very politically disengaged, and it was and it's, I think that is also very indicative of how they separated from their own country. And they're still, despite the fact that they have been here almost as long a period of time as Dominicans in this country, they're nowhere near anywhere as infiltrated in the political scheme of things as Dominicans, where I think they should be, in my honest opinion. And I'll just share this story, which I believe changed it for Dominicans. I don't know, maybe this is telling of my age. I don't know if, because I see some young people here, y'all may not know who that is. Mayor Koch in New York was a very important mayor during the strong recession in New York in the late 70s, 80s.
Legendary.
And very legendary.
I'm showing my age too.
You see him in the movies, like you see him in the movies. And the thing is that he was asked, the Latinos and Dominicans got together and we sat down with him and we asked, why don't you listen to us? Right? Why can't we get our trash picked up? Why can't we get a response from your offices? And he's like, why should I? I mean, New Yorkers, I love it because we're straight shooters. Here, you got to go around the corner. You got to suavizar, whatever. Over there, they just tell it like it is. And I'm a little bit of that. He said, why should I? Y'all don't vote. So by that time, we had the lowest census numbers. We had almost the majority of the population was still, despite the fact that they have been in this country for, let's say, 20, 30 years by that time, we still had a vast majority of individuals that were still residents, green card holders, and were not citizens. And so that was in 1980. By 1990, we flipped the script. We were the #1 group.
Wow.
to be, we learned our lesson. We were the number one group to be counted for the census. From that point on in the city of New York, we've been the number one group ever since. And since then, from 1990 on, that's when you started to see the first Dominican elected officials in New York City. And from then, we started to see the resources coming in. First, we started to establish the Northern Immigrant chapters, right? So that we could start converting our community to, we were very focused. No disrespect to Casa, if Casa's represented, but Casa's everywhere, right? We were laser focused.
Keep going, I'm sorry.
Our focus was to convert every single person possible to a U.S. citizen. So first we had to get them to apply. We had to give them the lessons. We had to take them to take the exam and get them passed, whether it was in English or in Spanish. And then we had to make sure that they came out to vote once we got there. Okay. So it was that, from undocumented. So in some cases, it was a story of going from undocumented all the way to fully engaged elected citizen and engaged to come out and come out to vote. And once we were able to do all that, the rest is history.
Right. So actually, Veronica she's saying, you're making a huge point. Many people are fearful of getting involved politically here in Maryland. I think we see a lot of that. And that the process is, I think there's a feeling that it's daunting and, obviously it's very foreign. It's a different system. What were the kind of smaller steps that you guys took first? Like, did you prioritize certain pieces over others first, or obviously the citizenship?
No, we created an entity and we worked with our congressional representatives to fund those entities to make sure that we were delivering the classes, the literacy, because the reality is that we have a large population that does not even read. So, and we had the same, and I'll be honest, we had the same issues in New York.
Sure.
We had the same literacy issues. But the thing is, we were able to find ways to circumvent them, right? In the cases where people couldn't read or write. And so we had to make sure that we educated and taught these people, like my aunt knows more about history now, and she's like 70. She knows more about the presidents than I probably do. You know what I mean? Because they actually took a class about this.
Right. I love it.
So but the thing is that, and then we were able to, my aunt and my family, now we were able to be so ingrained in the process where now we're inside the political sphere. Now we're inside the precincts at voting day. We could talk to individuals and say, hey, this is the voting thing. You need help voting, and we were able to help people because right now people have literally, they sweat when they got to walk in because everybody in those rooms do not look like them. Right. And frankly, let's be honest, not everybody wants them in there.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true. Yeah.
That's why they don't promote who's in the who are election chiefs. They don't want us in those rooms because that controls the vote oftentimes. So the thing is, how do you change that?
Yeah, agreed. And we all want to be part of the solution, right? So we asked Natalie a final question, and I'm going to ask you again, because I think it's an interesting question. Oftentimes, you're the only one in the room representing part of what you're saying. How do you deal with that? How do you address it? Like, what inspires you in that moment? Because I know it can't be easy.
Well, I mean,
and you're carrying a lot of water for us. I mean, let's face it.
I mean, right now I'm not alone. I mean, I got Jocelyn Peña-Melnick here too.
Of course.
she's the highest ranking Latina in the state. So
That's right.
so I mean, you know, she was the one alone in the room oftentimes in Annapolis, right?
Right. Right.
But I mean, and I was the one in the county council. The thing is that we lost. This is the first time in over 20 years we don't have Latinos at the table in Prince George's County at the council level. And that is very, very damaging for us.
Sure.
And so a lot of these wins that we did with the $10 billion investment, the 9 schools, all of it could go out the water now, out the window, because these people don't care. They could disperse the money elsewhere. I mean, I'm gonna have to fight every single step of the way for these schools, the names, everything. So it's gonna be a challenge. How, I don't know. I mean, I am very values driven. I don't, you know, tengo pelo en la lengua. I'm very values driven. I do what I feel is right, and being able to, as long as I could sleep at night, I'm cool. My thing is that Jocelyn is much more diplomatic than I am, you know, and so
You guys can play good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, but I'm, you know, the thing is that, you know, I have to be able, because Jocelyn isn't going to be around forever either. You know what I mean? So I got to be able to learn how to be a little bit more sensitive and diplomatic and play the game a little bit more so that I could be more effective, particularly because I think the way things operate in Annapolis is very different from how they operated maybe when it was just 6 votes on county council. Now I got to worry about hundreds, right? And with that, I really got to go because the bell is ringing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Delegate Taveras. I'm so excited that you came to be with us. We're going to be bothering you some more and learning more
Totally.
about
Invite me back anytime.
Will do. Absolutely. Thank you. You have a great afternoon, and thank you so much for your service. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Veronica, it is now your turn. As always, you are our wrap up. Take it away.
Gracias, Gabby. Gracias. Good morning, everyone. Veronica Cool here, a proud co-founder of MLU. Wow. You know, I'm sitting here just thinking about the different trajectories between Denny and Natalie, and I'm looking at all the introductions on the chat, and I know there's so much work that has to be done. One of my biggest mental hurdles, real hurdles, is that we don't have enough representation. And I know this is one of Gabby's biggest points. So that fear that our community has, right? If we look at the acculturation spectrum, tenemos a gente que tienen años aquí, people that have been here forever, and they're very comfortable in their own skin, like Denny, right? She has no issues speaking her mind.
Como dice, no tiene pelos en la lengua. So for those who are not Spanish dominant, pelos en la lengua means she doesn't have any hair on her tongue, which literally, I know it sounds gross, but it literally means that, you know, there's no obstacles. She's going to say what's on her mind.
She doesn't have any issues. So, you know, my struggle is we have those fully acculturated folks comfortable in their own skin that understand that it is not a life or death consequence to participate in elected office, in legislation and advocacy, where a lot of our newly arrived immigrants or those that are maybe lower acculturation, they're still carrying that fear of their home countries, of retaliation, of they're going to take my kids, my family will disappear overnight. So it's very difficult to get them to show up, let alone vote, right? We're not even there. We're simply asking them to go to a council meeting and say, hey, that stop sign, that intersection is deadly. Hey, that, you know, I need more bilingual teachers in the schools. They don't know their power. So, you know, the fact that we lost a lot of ground, we don't have enough representation, but we have Denny now over with Jocelyn. We have
But we lost her in the county council.
Oh, we lost a lot of representation. So where I'm mulling over is, yes, there's progress. but we have a lot of work to do. How do we advance all the issues that you guys are posting on the chat? And I appreciate everybody has their community organizations and community programming and their beautiful pieces in their individual zip codes, neighborhoods, but we need advocacy at the statewide level. So I would love for us to just, and I know we don't have the time to fix the world's problems, but I want us to start thinking big picture. I mean, we have to find a way to develop our youth, to encourage, not our youth, all of us, to be more involved in politics, in elected office, whether you're running or whether you're showing up and testifying, getting in councils and committees. So maybe, Gabriela, we need to have a section on our website in our newsletter that talks about openings. You know, like
we do put it in the newsletter. We put when we receive openings, we try to make sure that there's, but sometimes there's more openings, there's timing issues, et cetera, but we'll work it out.
They're all last minute, but you know, the thought is if everybody gets into the habit of, because we're so visible, not all of us, but there's some that are really visible. Like every day I get an invitation to be on a board. I don't ever say no. I forwarded it to you guys. So I'm going to ask every one of you to never say no. Take it and purposely slow down and send it to that person you know would be key. And we're going to have to handle a lot of self-esteem issues, because we know a lot of our people, especially our women, are like, I don't know, puedo. I don't have that. I can't. Oh, I don't know, puedo. Danny and Natalie, Natalie's line, I love my accent. I love who I am. That's our superpower. We have to start changing that narrative. So my ask for today, you guys know I always give you homework, is let's be intentional about sharing these opportunities and targeting them and going, hey, Carly, I know you've done a lot of work with, building, economic procurement opportunities, education for our small businesses. This is for you. And Carly would have never thought about it. And all of a sudden we have an ally. And it's not just about Latinos, guys, but it's also allies. You don't have to be a Latino to do good work. It is a benefit, right? But you just don't have to be Latino. Pero that's my ask.
But she's not biased, not at all.
Not at all. But I didn't say Dominican though, that would have been real biased. So let's truly drive change. Then he said it, we sat down with New York with the key player and said, what's up? And the answer was simple. You don't have power. Why would I listen to you? That's a real simple answer. Shit, if we don't show up, why does anybody allocate money for us in language access, community outreach and training? Why? We don't matter. So we got to start changing that. So we got to make sure we're at the damn table every damn time. And it doesn't have to be you, pero coño, start grabbing people and go, yo, I'm going, you coming? And we just need to be annoying all the time. I can do that. We need help. We need help.
Well, I don't know about being annoying, but I do feel strongly that there's that old saying, the squeaky wheel gets greased. So maybe it's not annoying, but it's being loud and proud, and but also strategic, to your point, Veronica, as you often tell me, because and when we work and pull together in the same direction, and we put our, now I'm going to sound all new agey, intentionality into our actions, oftentimes we get results. But we all have to figure out the different pieces. Who needs to be in the room? Who's not in the room that should be there? Who do we need to get our issues to? And be clear, be really clear. Because when we're clear, I think clarity, I'm going to steal this. I heard recently, clarity is kindness, right? That when you're clear, it's really straightforward. There's no messing around. It's like, we're clear, this is what we want. And then I think you can build off of that. And move us forward. Well, everybody, thank you so much. We have reached the end of our session. This was fun for me. I always enjoy seeing, when I met, going back to Natalie, I met her when she was 16 and she was my intern. So I watched her go to college. I helped her build her first Latino program at her college, and it was really wonderful. So, and then looking at Denny and seeing her career pathways, and I've been on a number of panels with her, and she's all about the numbers, and she's always got those numbers down, which I think is also part of the lesson. So thanks to all of you. We're really glad to have you. We'll have more stuff for you next week. There's a lot of good stuff in the chat. I'm going to take that down, and I'm going to take some of your ideas, Veronica, and try to get us to the next level. Every time we do something, I want to get us to the next level. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great rest of your week. I guess it's Thursday, so have a great weekend. And I'll see you next month. Thank you for joining us.